Welcome along to the Tenacious Be podcast. I am your host, Ashley Bentley, and we are right at the beginning of a new series on the podcast. Tune out, turn on, and drop in, where we explore the therapeutic value of psychedelics. So I'm really excited about our guest today. Let me introduce you, the lovely Dr. Reverend Laura Patryas. Dr. Patryas holds a PhD in psychophysics and is a qualified psycho-spiritual counselor, internal family systems practitioner, non-duality teacher, and an ordained meta-spiritual minister.
Yeah.
With extensive lecturing experience at the University of Manchester, Dr. Patryas has also presented her pioneering psychophysics research at conferences around the world. In addition to her impressive academic background, Laura has over 2 decades of experience as a spiritual guide, and she wears many hats. She is a mother, optometrist, sound healer, voice therapy practitioner, musician, writer, and artist. Wow, I can't wait to explore all of this with you. Her teachings beautifully synthesize principles from various traditions, including Advaita Vedanta, Tantra, Sufism, Christian mysticism, Celtic and shamanic traditions, Taoism, Zen, and Western non-duality, such as A Course in Miracles. Quite the myriad of modalities there. And today we're going to be discussing her latest book, Awaken to Love, Reclaiming Wholeness Through Embodied Non-Duality with Jungian Wisdom, Psychosynthesis, and Internal Family Systems. This work represents the culmination of her decades of research on integrating non-duality into psychotherapy. And we'll also be exploring how these concepts intersect with the psychotherapeutic use of psychedelics, offering a holistic approach to healing and personal transformation. So welcome to the podcast, Dr. Laura Patryas.
Oh, Ashley, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here and to share this time with you and all your listeners. Yeah, really happy. Looking forward to it.
It's really special. So I've been reading your book. I haven't finished it yet, and it's so funny. I've been reading it on a Kindle, and I'm of two minds between, I love holding a book in my hands. It's brilliant. But with the Kindle, I can highlight, I can make notes. It's so much easier than doing that in a book. So, but it's so funny, as I've been reading your book, I'm basically highlighting everything. It's like, right, okay, come on, Ashley, let's narrow this down. So yeah, I'm not quite finished with it because I'm just simmering in it. It is such a beautiful book to read, and I don't want to rush through it. But I have made a lot of notes, which I'll probably be bringing up a few of those today. So first off, I would just like to say, what an interesting background you have. It's so many different areas of study. My goodness, I'd love for you to just tell a little bit about your journey up to now and the background in writing Awakening to Love. And then we'll get more deeper into how that can all relate to psychedelics.
Lovely. Thank you for that. That was an incredible intro. Wow. We sort of do things in our lives and we achieve things, and then when we look back at it and go, oh wow, who was that just did all this?
Yes.
So I suppose my story starts, so I was born in Poland.
Right.
And Poland at that time was a very it was a very tricky place. There was a lot of tension, there was a lot of heartbreak, a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of quite an unusual birthplace, I guess. And then I'd always felt myself to be quite a sensitive person, really open to seeing things, seeing in between the lines and seeing things that maybe others weren't able to see.
Yes.
And that kind of quite early on led me down a certain path, really. I'd always known I was although I couldn't see the end point, I could see I was on a path. of some sort that was kind of guiding me, leading me. And then very young, I got introduced to loss, to grief, to very, very deep, heavy grief. So my father died when I was 3.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and that was a very big opening and a portal to me into fascination with actually what is this thing called life.
Mm.
So I was 3, but I was already very curious to know. I kind of understood on some level that although my father's body was no longer there, I was still very connected to him
Yeah.
on some level. And of course, maybe that was the hope that I needed to have to keep in order to get through such a period of my time of my life. So that was kind of a big portal. And then when I was 12, I moved to Britain. And I loved that because that was such a massive culture change. But I never quite let go of this feeling of I'm here to do something. I'm on a bit of a path here. I don't know what it is. But there was a subtlety and a nuance that I could see in myself that was almost like my daily bread.
Yeah.
Like I could just live in my own subtlety and my own nuance, and that would be enough for me. Didn't necessarily, I was a bit of an odd teen. I didn't really want to hang out with the other teens, being out late. People would kind of look at me and they would class me as the good girl. But I wasn't doing it to be good. I was doing it because I so enjoyed my own mind. I so enjoyed my own psyche.
Yes.
Um, so yes, and sort of at quite an early age, I got into yoga, read a lot of the scripture around yoga, yogic healing, a lot of Hindu literature, and really started to formulate my own embodied version of what I was reading, of what I was living through, and what I had lived through. So it kind of started to really get a very, very beautiful taste for all of this. And obviously, carried on, went to uni, did the usual thing. And it wasn't until I graduated as an optometrist and I was working with the clients and obviously helping people to see better, vision, yes, looking after people's retinas and giving them clarity on some level. And through this work, I realized that, what I really love about this job, though it's beautiful, helping people to see, and if someone came in with a retinal tear, to navigate them to get help, and all of that. But what I really loved was being another soul with another soul.
Yeah.
I just wanted, it's like, I suppose there was an aspect of Chiron, the wounded healer in me, where through speaking to others about their wounds, and it was amazing, people would just open up to me. People would be seemingly coming for an eyesight test, but really within a few moments they would start to pour out their stories of loss and longing and grief. And obviously I was always running late because the eyesight test should be 20 minutes long. I was, sometimes I'd be there an hour.
Oh, wow.
Wanting to pour over this, patient's details about their life. And then I sort of, actually, COVID was a really beautiful time for me because I took a little break from my lecturing and from the clinical side of things and thought, why not retrain in psychotherapy? Why not follow this?
Yes.
So I did. Psycho-spiritual counseling. I did IFS. And during that time, I was already working towards my spiritual ministry. And yeah, it was a big decision to navigate away from this kind of more grounded, very comfortable, quite a lovely way of life. Everything was known, everything was just easy, to dealing with people's psyches, with people's souls. Obviously, psyche, that word in itself means soul. So to deal with people's, to kind of muck in with someone else's grief was just bliss to me. Was just like really, really beautiful.
Yes.
And then in amongst that, I'll backtrack a little bit. So in amongst that, I did a PhD in psychophysics, which is an area that looks at how does the brain interpret the visual scene?
Yes.
How do we make sense of what we see and what happens, because there's a whole bunch of top down and bottom up processes that happen, and whole sorts of data sorting, and my area was looking at how do the rods see in the dark and how can we improve people's vision in the dark. And then one day, as I'd got into this tantric group, I was talking to kind of one of the senior people within that group, and I was telling him about my life path. And I said, oh yes, I help people to see. My research area was helping people to see in the dark. And he just looked at me and said, yes, that's your gift. That's what you do. Yeah. You help people see in the shadow, in the dark. And it kind of, that, I think that was the moment when I thought, I think that was about a year or two before COVID. But that was the moment when I thought, oh, that's what I've been doing.
It blows my mind how often the literal and the metaphorical are hand in hand in so many ways. It's blowing my mind. I'm finding people are feeling more mentally strong when they get more physically strong. So helping people to literally see outwardly better is, and and now you are helping people see inwardly
Yes.
better. Just beautiful.
Yes. And it's like the universe was just pointing this big arrow and saying, this is what you're doing.
Yes.
And I'd now like you to do that on the inside. It's like, oh, okay, now I get the hint. But it actually took another person to see that for me, took another intuitive person who could see round the corners in between the lines to kind of translate what the universe was asking me to do, really.
Of course, yes, sometimes so many things are hiding in plain sight, and it takes, as you say, an intuitive outside observer to point it out. Just beautiful, beautiful. I love that. So many things I want to ask you because it's so interesting because my own journey has been quite similar in the fact that I've been using my voice since I was a teenager. I used to do voiceover work and was in radio, and alongside that, just fascinated with dreams and psychology. And those two things were running alongside, but not connecting. Then I had a bit of a health crisis and had to sort of retrain, and I retrained as a hypnotherapist and a breathwork practitioner, and suddenly my voice, I was able to utilize that alongside helping others. As you say, it is such a gift to be there with somebody when they're having these deep experiences. It's an honor, and we learn so much about ourselves and the world, and we tap into that deep collective knowledge when we experience it with ourselves and with other people. So keep going. I don't want to interrupt.
Yes, and I want to thank you for bringing in the voice into this. So I'd always been quite afraid of my voice. Well, when I was a young child, I loved singing. I loved to express myself. I was quite, very, very filled with drama. you know.
Yes.
And I felt that I had a very powerful voice. And then when I turned 16, 17, off the back of someone's comment, I started to shrink in on myself, and I started to kind of retract some of this confidence around the voice, and started to have a very difficult time speaking, singing, showing others who I am. And that lasted quite a good while till I was about 24. So for around 7 years, yes, I was kind of didn't really know. It's kind of like I lost some of the thread of what I was trying to say. I was very anxious about my voice. And it's so funny because the moment I started to relax into what the universe was pointing me to be, then the voice just opened up. I didn't have to actually heal anything. I didn't have to force anything. It just, like now, it just feels like, oh, what a joy to be talking to you.
Yes. Yes.
Whereas in that period of 7 years, if someone had have asked me, would you come and talk to me? I would have, I think I would rather die, actually. And you know
Yeah.
what? Here's the sad thing. I think there's a little bit of research that shows that most people would have minor surgery than go and give a public talk. So strong is the fear of using the voice and being seen.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
so paradoxical because on the one hand, we crave to be seen, yes?
Yes.
And on
Yes.
the other, being seen means, what if people don't like me? What if they criticize me? What if they reject me? So it's such a hard place to be in.
Absolutely. And I have a feeling you'll agree with me on this. I have a feeling that the best people out there the best teachers, the best guides, the best facilitators, almost there's almost a requirement to experience these various different crises of the psyche in order to know it fundamentally to be able to help others in future.
And it makes me think of that, going back to that wounded healer notion. And
Yeah.
also, Jung has this fantastic quote, and I'm going to paraphrase here. Um, a tree branches can only reach up to the heavens if the roots reach down to the depths of the hell. Yes.
Yes.
And it's the
Yeah.
same with a human being. We're in between this kind of supreme light and beauty and the darkness of the dark. And if we can harness the power of the shadow and the dark, because of course 90% of the shadow is pure gold, yes?
Yes, yes, yes. That has
We
been
can,
something
yeah.
I've been really, really relishing in recently because it's quite a relatively new quote for me just in the last couple of years, that quote, and really going deep into what that means. And it's been so revelatory in my own life and also with my clients that so often the shadow, people think, well, it's all the worst parts of ourself, the violence and jealousy and rage. And those things are definitely there in the shadow, but it's also the things that we feel not safe to allow ourselves to experience. So I've said this to a number of clients, and I'm curious to see what you think, especially if I have a client who's especially sensitive. I'm a highly sensitive person, and a lot of times people can instantly not like you because of it, but it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with the fact that the other person has doesn't feel safe to experience that sensitivity. So when they experience it with somebody else, it's unsettling to them. Yeah.
Yeah, it is true. Everything that kind of triggers us about someone else in the apparent outer world is really everything that we haven't claimed, that we haven't owned, or that we disowned and we pushed it down. Um, as a coping mechanism, yeah, I don't think any of this is a conscious.
No.
We unconsciously we almost have to do it as a way of self-preservation. So, and the so-called shadow is really just wounded, injured, quite often very young parts of ourselves that were pushed into situations where they weren't able to cope.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way
Yeah.
it overwhelmed their psyche. And so now they're frozen in that place. And then different other parts of our psyche came on board and says, I don't want to feel that ever again.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep this part exiled in the shadow. We'll lock her up in prison, throw away the key, and I never have to feel that. And so we do fear it, yes, because it's been locked away for so long. Maybe it's acquired secondary trauma and secondary burdens now.
Yeah.
And now it feels like quite a big, powerful thing. And really, when we come to it, it's like it's a small child with tear-stained cheeks that
Yeah.
just wants to be held.
Yeah.
Even the so-called, even the narcissistic parts, yes, even they are calling out for love. And what I love in A Course in Miracles, there's that lovely quote about everything is either love or a call for love.
I love that.
Yeah. Now it's a bit tricky to see a call for love when someone is going at you. It's a bit tricky to look past that and actually see the innocence and the beauty that they truly are.
Yes.
But everything is a call for love. The way we attempt to get that love met may not be healthy, both for us and for the others.
Yeah.
But underneath that, there's often a very small child that just wants its mummy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this is probably a great time to give the listeners a brief description of parts as they relate to, we can discuss internal family systems and Jungian archetypes and active imagination. Would you mind giving a brief overview of those?
Yeah, sure. So in IFS, we speak about, first of all, we're not a mono mind. So we're not just really one. So what I mean by that is, if I was to ask you now, would you like to go out for a drink after this? You might have different parts. One part might say, yeah, sure. Another part might say, oh, no, I've got something else. Another part, maybe if you're trying to go alcohol free, would have some other views about this. Maybe if you had an alcoholic parent, you might have another part. So you might have 4 or 5 different parts that would be pulling you in different ways. One that says, yes, I want to go for a drink, and another that would say no, and everything in between. So what I love about this model is that I suppose the I that we call ourselves is just really multiple parts. Now, why is that a useful thing for healing and for therapy? If you have a frequent part of yourself that says, I'm worthless and I should die, if you truly take on board that that's all that you are, and that's the entirety of you, that's a hard sell. That's hard. That's
Yeah.
hard to deal with. But if you understand that that's a part of you, and that this part might have a valid reason for saying this to you in your subvocal voice,
Yes.
and that it thinks it's protecting you and keeping you safe by doing so, then we can let go of so much burden. It's like, oh, wait, this isn't truly who I am. Who I am is the self, which I'll talk about in a moment now. But this is a part of me that for some reason has taken on this voice, this belief, this energy.
Yeah.
And so can I be loving? Can I see that it's calling out for love? Yes.
Yeah.
And can I attend to it? Can I see what it's asking? Can I figure out what it's made it be like this? What role does it have? So we have different parts. And the roles that the parts have are not what the natural quality of these parts are. So they're just the burdens. So the burdens are the traumas that we have as we go through life. So every time our parent is not able to soothe us, to attune to our needs, so we have, little traumas and bigger traumas. But every time we go through a trauma, that kind of attaches itself to the part.
Yeah.
And then the part sees itself then not through the lens of this beauty and love and innocence that we truly are, but through the lens of the trauma, and often the harsh voice of the person who caused this. Yeah. Often our caregiver. So often our inner critics will take on the voice of the parent, of mum, dad, brother, parent, teacher. Yeah.
Yes.
So first of all, it's to recognize that these parts are not who we truly are, and that if we treat them with care, with curiosity, with compassion, with kindness, they'll open up to us and they'll say, actually, I don't like doing this. I don't like to have this negative voice, but I don't know how to let go of it.
Yes.
And so then we turn to ourselves, to our true self, who's really an effortless guide in the inner world. It can take a little while to sort of dig out self, and for us to see that, I'm not this negative voice, I'm not this shame, I'm not this anger, this grief. There's something in me that has so much spaciousness, calm, clarity, compassion. So in the IFS model, we call that self.
Yes.
Self with a capital S. And that's very, very similar to this kind of notion of higher self, an ideal self, this kind of ideal caregiver, this perfect role model, perfect guide.
Yes.
And really kind of orchestrate and integrate the inner world. So one of the nicest metaphors for this kind of parts and self is that it's like we're an orchestra. Yes.
Yes.
That one's really, really good. I can say that I can see that you recognize it.
Yes.
So before we come to this kind of IFS healing work, it's like we're kind of like a haphazard orchestra, different, very talented musicians attempting to play, but through the lens of their burdens and the trauma. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we get the self on board, self that is our true self, that is here, covered under these layers of parts, when we get that on board, it can seamlessly orchestrate and really integrate, so that we start to play a beautiful melody.
Yes.
So that we're not getting in our own way, so that these parts in their good intention don't carry on sabotaging us. Yes.
Yes.
They don't mean to, bless their hearts.
Exactly. Getting them all working together, getting in tune with yourself. And so much of that is, yes, treating these inner parts with respect and acknowledgement. And, even if it's a part that isn't providing with us with a positive intention, we can still learn to work with it. And it's the very definition of how we want to interact with others. We want to interact with ourselves. We want to treat other people with respect. We want to treat our inner parts with respect, if we want to be able to get that harmony that we're trying to restore.
Yes. And if I was to pick out two phrases from what you just said, it's so much about getting in tune with ourselves so that we can bring this harmony to the inner world. And of course, as within, so without. Yes. So the moment we have harmony on the inner world, that will automatically translate to harmony in the outer world.
Yes.
And I suppose it's a bit similar for those of you who really like Rumi's Guest House. It's a
Yeah.
bit like that. Yes, we have these different visitors coming into our sort of metaphorical guest house, our finite consciousness. And how do we want to treat these guests, even the meanest ones,
Yes.
even the most extreme voices? Can we still honor them? Yes. And
Absolutely.
one of the other more recent ways of kind of putting across what IFS is like is, of course, that lovely film Inside Out. Yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So good.
So good.
So good, so good. Yeah, and funnily enough, I've been studying this for a while now, but I never even knew about that movie until about 6 months ago, and I watched it, and I was like, oh my God, it's amazing. Yeah, so anybody out there, if you want to get a good idea of what we're talking about, Inside Out is a great way to dip your toe in, I think.
And in fact, when they were at the creative phase of the movie being made, they actually got in touch with the IFS lot. So they got in touch with a few people who kind of knew about the inner workings of the human mind. And so IFS is definitely part of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I figured after watching it, I thought, yeah, somebody didn't just come up with this. They must have had somebody, because it's quite clever how they do it, and it's really quite beautiful. And one of the things that I love about your book is there are some really beautiful exercises to do with most of everything that you are explaining. You provide really good examples of exercises, and I've found some new benefits already from this book working on myself. So yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I suppose it will be a good idea to explain to people non-duality. I mean, this is a huge part of the overarching theme of the book. Getting in touch with yourself is getting in touch with everything.
Yes, that's right. I mean, you've pretty much summed it. It's about this mirroring, and it sort of goes back to this whatever's on the inside, it's on the outside, outside, and inside. So non-duality basically comes from the Sanskrit word advaita, which means not to. A means not, and dvaita means to. Actually, it's the same word as in Polish for two, dwa. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yes. So it means not to. And a lot of people get tripped up by that. A lot of people get very dogmatic about that. It's like, well, if we're all just one, then you and I do not exist. Yes? And that's one way of looking at it, sure. The way I look at it is that we're not separate. Yes?
Yeah.
So essentially, essence or consciousness or universe or whatever we want to call it is one. Yes?
Yeah.
But within that oneness, there's infinite play or lila. Yes? Infinite play. And that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yes. So we
Yeah.
must never shy away from multiplicity. We must never shy away. We must never discard what is already sacred, what is already it. Yes.
Yes.
Because we can go round and round in a circle, chasing our own tail, going, well, wait, if I'm not real and you're not real and none of this is really here, then what's the point? And then we can end up in all sorts of rabbit holes doing that. But really, the way I look at it is that, you see, I'm there now. I close my eyes and here we are. It's perfect, it's peaceful, and it's self. And I know that you're there right now too. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's always here, this non-dual presence. In fact, presence is key for this. Vessel van der Kolk says that the hallmark of trauma is our inability to be present in the present
Yes.
moment. Yes, we get hijacked.
Yeah.
So what happens? We're facing a job interview and what happens to us, rather than being present and, carrying on taking care of our kids or doing housework or being present with our colleagues at work. We go into a fight or flight and worry and fear. What if I make a fool of myself? So we get hijacked. So this kind of presence, this ability to be with what is here, is absolutely vital. And I think is the underpinning of this non-dual way of living, because non-dual teachings are beautiful. I mean, who hasn't read a non-dual teaching that says, I want that, that's perfect, gosh,
Yes.
bliss and peace and everything. And then, of course, we kind of go back to our normal lives and we start shouting at our neighbor, yes? Even
Yes.
though we've just read a passage about bliss and peacefulness. And this is what, this is something that Ram Dass points to. And he says, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your
Yes.
family.
One of my favorite quotes. Absolutely.
Because we, and bless us in our desire for healing and for total, just total, being loved and being seen, we try to bypass these parts. It's like, oh, if I just sneak around this part and go to the bliss, then everything's fine. But then our neighbor knocks on the door and starts talking to us, and then we start to get triggered and we go, oh, wait, I can't bypass this.
Yes.
So let me feel it. Let me be with it, and let me see that this that is here is not separate from love.
Absolutely.
And it
Absolutely.
dissolve in peace. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
So non-dual teachings for me are not about trying to attain some perfect state of bliss. It's to say, what stops me from being it right now with what's here?
Yeah. You mentioned something that made me remember Ram Dass speaking to his friend Emmanuel, talking about, I want to constantly be in this state of bliss. How can I do this? How can I do this? And Emmanuel said, well, why don't you try taking the curriculum? Why don't you try being human? Um, this is, nobody knows why we're here. So we might as well, whilst we're exploring these amazing concepts and ideas that help us connect more deeply to ourselves and others, let's also allow our humanity and allow ourselves to get it wrong and to, do something completely counter to a revelation we might have had just moments before. Yeah.
Yeah, that is right. And we are here to do both. And this is the beauty of both and, yes?
Yeah.
We're here to be in this world, but not of it. What a paradox. What do
Yeah.
you mean by that? We are here to experience whatever is here, right? And that's what presence is. That's simply what presence is. Presence isn't, oh, I'm noticing some difficult feelings coming up. Let me see if I can mantra my way out of them.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can breath work my way out of it. That's helpful.
Yes.
That's a tool, yes? It's a
Yes.
super helpful tool. Breath work, mantra, beautiful tools, yoga, all sorts of exercises. In the end, we recognize tools for what they are. Just that, they're tools. In the end, we swim in just open presence. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Total non-resistance to what is.
Yeah. And I think you're exactly right. And I think this is where so often people, bless them, they're trying to use whatever tools possible to get out of whatever difficult moment is happening, as you say, which is good, but also don't try and turn away. Like, we don't want to wallow and simmer in whatever negative experience is happening, but we do want to look at it and acknowledge it and see what is there. What is it trying to show us? What is it trying to teach us before we can then properly transform it? Because otherwise, as you say, you're just going around it. You're not, it's still going to be there. So yeah, it's important to strike that delicate balance, because I think sometimes people can get a little bit confused, and it's like, well, but I thought we're not supposed to be living in the past. We shouldn't try and wallow in our misery and ruminate. And yes, you're right. That's we don't want to do that, but we also there's also a lot to learn there. So that acknowledgement and that curiosity is just, it's everything, isn't it?
Yeah, it really, really is. Um, Parts are not in the way, they are the way.
Yes.
We
Yes.
go through, yes? We
Yes.
don't go round, we don't try to go above, we don't try to do any, and it's like, and if we do that, can we at least do it consciously with presence? Like, oh, I'm noticing that there's a part of me that really wants to just go round this difficult feeling. Okay, what wisdom do you have for me, part? What are your
Yes.
good intentions for me? And often the
Yes.
part will say, I just don't want you to feel crap. I just
Yeah.
don't want you to cut yourself again. I
Yes.
just don't want you to have that argument with your husband. It's like, yeah, I get it. So sometimes let's recognize that bypass can be a healthy thing, yes?
Yes.
If it
Yes.
helps us to function in that very tricky moment in time, these tools can be very good. They can be very, very useful. But in the end, when we've have critical mass of self, critical mass of healing and curiosity and openness, in the end, we figure out, oh, wait, this is all just here for me to see in
Yes.
love, in presence. Yes. So,
Yes.
as you say, balance, it's a very, and of course, bear in mind that when we ruminate, we're still doing it here and now in the presence. If
Yes.
I ask you to think of a memory of an incident in your childhood, when are you thinking that? Now. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Here's the funny thing that we think. It's like, so where is the past then? Well, the past is always now.
Yes.
It's always
Yes.
now.
Yes. Everything is always now, isn't it?
Everything is
Yes.
always now. So being here now, being present now, all these teachings from the spiritual teachings and the kind of trauma experts teaching from people like Bessel van der Kolk, it's all pointing the same way. Presence, presence. Just be
Yes.
here now. Just be present. If you can't be, can you at least be conscious of the fact that I just need to bypass this?
Yes.
Can I park this here? I'll come back for you, part of myself, but I just need to I just need a bit of lightness now. Okay,
Yes.
cool. Then maybe
Yes.
we can do bypass consciously. Yes.
Yes. Yes. I think you're right. I think you're right. So often we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to, is this the right thing to do at the right time? And that, so it's so interesting. That is something that came up in one of my ayahuasca sessions. So the second ayahuasca ceremony I did, I had so many questions. I was just so ready, and I was like, right, and everything that popped up, I could not stop analyzing in the moment. I just couldn't let it unfold. And every time, and I knew I was doing it as well. And I kept trying to stop myself. And after a while, it just stopped showing me anything visually. It's like, right, okay, no, just cut it right off. So I was quite disappointed with that. But as with so many things, you don't always get what you want, but you get what you need in that moment. And I ended up having it was still a very good, very meaningful. I got a lot of meaning out of it. And that was a big part of it, knowing that this is what I'm doing all the time. I'm constantly trying to assess, is this the right thing? But I suppose this is the nature of our nervous system. We're continually assessing. So it's a continual trying to return to the moment, return to the moment. And I think this is where people can get quite frustrated with trying to be present, and they think, well, I'm just not good at it. And it's like, well, welcome to being human. We have to continually do this, and you're not doing it wrong. In fact, you're doing it right when you have to continually do this. This is what we're supposed to be doing.
Yes. I really love that because it makes me think of when we heal through the body, when we think of calm, we think of a kind of a flat line, yes? We think, oh, when I've really healed, then I'll be calm and nothing will ever trigger me, yes?
Yes.
And the only time we flatline is when we die.
Yeah.
Yes. The
Yeah.
rest of the time, um, when I did psychophysics, what you find is that the visual scene and the patterns are made often of a sinusoidal wave, goes up and down, yes? And whilst we don't want in our healing journey, when we come to our healing journey, we've figured out that we're kind of jaggedy. We're kind of loads of spikes, loads of lows, loads of highs. Neither can we flatline, but what we can do is we can even out and we can oscillate and pendulate, kind of like the waves on the ocean, yes? We
Yes.
allow ourselves to ride and be with whatever's here.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
not about being some kind of perfect guru, monk sitting on top of a mountain and perfectly calm. Neither is it about being kind of disorganized, It's more about just riding the waves in presence as they come. Yeah,
Yes.
bobbing up and down.
Yes. Yes. And that radical acceptance, that equanimity of whatever is occurring. Because when we add in the reaction and the judgment on top of it, it's you're just adding another layer onto whatever is happening. But again, easier said than done. We catch ourselves all the time. Now, I know a big part of this non-duality, this awareness of both ourself and you're right, paradoxes. I'm a big fan of paradoxes, even though technically the human brain doesn't tend to like paradoxes. That's another beautiful way of, I think, the more you embrace paradoxes, the more interesting life gets, and you can really open your mind. So speaking of opening minds, and psychedelics, a big, very interesting book, P-Cal by Shulgin. Have you read this?
I haven't, but it looks good.
It's called A Chemical Love Story. So this is Alexander Shulgin, and Anne Shulgin, his wife, wrote this. I haven't read all of it. I've only just barely scratched the surface from it. But one thing that he says in here that I really, really like is that he says, let me make clear some of the reasons why I find psychedelic experiences a personal treasure. I am completely convinced that there is a wealth of information built into us, with miles of intuitive knowledge tucked away in the genetic material of every one of our cells. Something akin to a library containing uncountable reference volumes, but without any obvious route of entry. And without some means of access, there is no way to even begin to guess at the extent and the quality of what is there. Psychedelic drugs allow exploration of this interior world and insights into its nature. And much like Stanislav Grof mentioned, that psychedelics are to the mind what the microscope is to biology and telescope is to astronomy. So I'm a huge fan of the inner exploration that can happen through these. And it's completely transformed my life in so many ways, which I spoke about in the previous episode to today. I would love to hear about your own personal experiences and how we can tap into this collective wisdom that is residing within all of us.
Beautiful. I suppose the first thing to say is that an IFS therapy session is very much like a psychedelic trip in itself without taking the psychedelics, yes?
Yes.
the founder of IFS quoted in one of the books. He says that when he started delving in, helping other people delve into their inner world, he figured out that this is the realm that shamans have been visiting for thousands of years. Yes.
Yes.
So it's so psychedelics. We don't necessarily need to ingest anything in order to enter that state, that kind of trance-like state of presence, openness, and the ability to see what is here and to weave the strands and go, oh, wait, I see that this part here is doing something over there and that part's there. Oh, this is how it works. And so it allows you to weave and form new neural networks.
Yeah.
Now, psychedelics can speed this process up for sure. Yes. So if you only do IFS therapy on its own, that's already amazing. And I would say there may not necessarily be a need to go further and explore psychedelics. But if you want to fast track yourself, psychedelics really is the way. The way I explain it to people who I talk to about this, it's a little bit like the psyche is like a snow globe. Yes.
Yes.
And typically with gravity, the things have settled down to the bottom and kind of become quite solid. Yes. And a bit frozen.
Yeah.
Now, psychedelics come along and they give the snow globe a little shake, and then all the particles float up. Yes. And then you get to see everything from different points of view. Yes. And when they settle down, they don't settle down in the same place, and they don't settle down with such stickiness and such solidity. Yes.
Yes.
They kind of interlace, overlap, make new links. So you suddenly find if you previously had neural, here's the neural network of your inner critic, and here's the neural network of your caretaker part. Whereas previously they were doing this, now you can splice that neural network. So that's what that's the gift of the medicine. It helps you to reorganize and orchestrate and harmonize the inner world. So it's a gift from self, I think. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really beautiful.
It's a really beautiful healing agent. And it can validate the stuff that, because the psychedelic experience calls to us all the time, whether we've had psychedelics or not. That trance-like state of being able to perceive and see things that we don't normally see is always calling. Subtle whispers, intuition, the super conscious is always calling through dreams, images, stuff we see, but we're too dull to hear it. We're just a little bit too yes, there are too many parts, too many voices, too many needs, lots of things. But it's like the psychedelics clears the path. It opens the path. And suddenly you see through the trees, you see around corners, and you see through mountains. I think they give us the vision that we probably once had.
Yes.
That indigenous people probably intuitively had.
Yes. Yes. Well, I think this is what amazed scientists when they first started to study these compounds more recently. I think from I can't remember which article I read this in, but that they were surprised. They really thought that that it would light up certain parts, it would just light up the brain. And what they found was that psilocybin, this was specifically, but I think this is relevant for most psychedelics, is it actually dampens down the filtration system in our subconscious, so we see more than we normally do. We see where our filters are, how we are, not we're experiencing the world in our own unique way, which I think most people know, but you don't know how you're doing it until you have an experience like this and you realize, oh gosh, I've been filtering that completely the wrong way. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
They really let you be the architect of your own psyche.
yes,
Yes. So you
yes,
get, it's fun. It's actually fun. When you go into a psychedelic journey with the intention of, um, let me see, let me see what is here. Can I have my eyes wiped clean so that my vision can be crystal clear of what's really going on here? That humbleness of heart as well. As when you go to the grandmother, she gives you a whip on the bum, yes?
yes.
Because you think you go in asking for this and that and that, and you have a list of things, and she says, what? You're here for what? And she spanks you, yes? And she says,
Yes.
here's what you need to see, my dear. So
Yes.
when we go in with a humble, open heart, we can really begin to be an architect of our own psyche. And you go, actually, I need this aspect of me moved here. I need
Yes.
that moved there. So when I first came to psychedelics, I spent quite a long time being what I called in the underworld, in the pipes,
Yeah.
fixing things. It's like, I need a new piece of pipe here to rejoin this network. I need, oh God, don't want to look at that. That, oof. But let me go in.
Yeah.
Let me go in. Yes. Deep breath and in I dive. Yes.
Yeah.
So psychedelics are a fantastic fast track opportunity to really become the architect, your own therapist, your own healer.
Yes. Yes. I totally agree. And I think, and it's interesting, it's not just the experience itself. It's really, you see it, and then the real work starts. It's the integration afterwards. I mean, with all four of my ayahuasca experiences, oddly enough, the real the real amazing revelation. So it's like, yeah, the puzzle pieces were thrown into the air and they didn't fall back down until about 6 months later. Suddenly, each time I did that, it was roundabout roughly 6 months later where suddenly the revelations were really coming in and all the learnings were really coming in. So it can be a very uh, it's different for everybody, isn't it? Sometimes, the experience itself provides you all the answers you need, and then you can work on the integration afterwards. But sometimes the answers don't come until much later, but you can still work on integrating what comes in. It's have you helped any clients with their own integration of psychedelic experiences?
Not clients, but I've obviously been in groups and we've sort of held space for each other. There are quite strict laws in Britain about all of this, so it's
Sure.
a bit tricky area. But actually, in Australia 2 years ago, I think psychedelics were legalized for psychotherapeutic use.
Yes.
And my prediction is Britain's going to join within a couple of years. I have zero doubt that this is the next latest kid on the block, because Manchester here has got one of the biggest research units in Europe on psychedelics,
Amazing.
just over the road,
Oh, wow.
and it's amazing. So it's coming. I think it's within a couple of years that Britain will legalize psychedelic for psychotherapeutic uses.
Yes, let's hope so. Let's hope so. I agree with you. And we've got MAPS in the United States, the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies. They're doing amazing work. Thankfully, it's getting the appropriate research that has been needed for so long. So yes, I think you're right, and I'm so glad that the tide is turning and we're getting real information out there, which is just so beautiful. Another thing that is beautiful, I've just spotted a little note here that I wrote for myself is I must inform the listeners how I found you was I started to get really interested in internal family systems, and I was on Facebook, and I thought, oh, I'll just see what Facebook groups are out there. And your Facebook page, IFS Non-Dual Community, is just an oasis of intellectual, thought-provoking, just beautiful exploration of ideas with people. It's just, Facebook is not always the best place to go, but that page, your page is beautiful, and I'm amazed at I don't know how you find that every time I see you commenting on somebody's it's such a thought-provoking comment. It's such a really deep and insightful, and I'm just like, gosh, this woman, how does she find the time? It's really, really beautiful. I cannot recommend it enough, and obviously your book as well. Yeah, speak a little bit about the Facebook community that you've beautifully put together and your book as well.
Yeah. Wow, thank you for that. I think it's down to the people who are in that group. Yeah, it's such it's just open and we welcome what is. So Sid and I, my colleague and myself, last year it's actually been a year now that that group's been going, and it's got, I don't know, 3,500 members in it. I'm like, okay, we didn't ask for this, but if it's here, great.
Yeah.
So Sid and I thought, let's just see if we can. So each of us on our own journeys, we're exploring how can we integrate non-dual teachings with IFS, with parts work.
Yeah.
And we kind of got talking to each other, and so we created this lovely group, and we've kind of largely let it be what it wants to be. And there's all sorts of people on there, people come and find us, and some people there are like hardcore non-dual teachings. So like, there's nothing here, no one here, no, there's none of this is real, and that's all welcome. There are people who are very precious and tender and loving with the parts, and very occasionally, Sid and I don't really have to admin that group much. We simply trust that, whatever people post is always going to be held in self, and there's going to be a cheeky little bit of rogue teaching always.
Sure.
Yes. Even the posts where someone gets super triggered was like, is there a both and here? Can we see this through that lens of this is love or it's calling for love?
Yes.
What can we learn here? So actually, very little in that group is to do with myself and Sid. Both of us try to hand it over to the people, which is really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
And we just trust that whatever comes up will be the right thing for all of us. So that's how the group came about. Talking about the book. Such a curious thing, this book. Until I started writing it, I didn't know I was going to write a book, actually. So when I submitted the book in the end, it was around May time. And when I opened the original file, because it's had many drafts, it was actually almost on the same day, a year on.
Wow.
I was like, oh, okay, that's a curious thing. And I haven't felt such passion for anything previously, and I haven't really had such a passion since. It's sort of, this book demanded that it be written.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't take a no.
Yeah.
It's like, what about my daughter? What about my lecturing? What about my psychotherapy practice? And the book said, you're going to get up, and this is how I did it. You're going to get up at 5 a.m. every morning. You're going to start writing. At 8:30, you're going to take your daughter into school. Then you're going to come back home and you're going to write.
Yeah.
And then you're going to pick her up and then you're going to write some more, and you're going to do that for a year. And I thought, well, but what do you want me to write then? And I just put my hands, and I've got this keyboard in front of me. I just put my hands on the keyboard and type, 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 type. And I was like, okay, great. We're just going to write this. Great. And then occasionally when I look in the book, and when I flick through it now, or when someone reads a quote, I'm a bit like, wow, who wrote this? I have no memory
Yeah.
of writing it. And so it's sort of, if you were to say to me, write a book on non-dual IFS, I would have said, there's no such a thing. You can't do it. It's not, and here we are. So it feels like it wanted to be written. And if I'm honest, so much of this book I credit to my psychedelics. Yes.
Wow.
Because what I've written here isn't necessarily my own. I mean, yes, you could say I've done this work for the past 20, 25 years, but really this is the wisdom that's ours. It's shared. It's here. Yeah. It's those whispers, those intuitive whispers that we really haven't got the time to listen to because we're so busy trying to keep our head above water. Yes.
Yes.
So it's a curious book. I'm still very curious about it, and I mean, I'm looking at it now, and it's such a curious thing. And I think it really is that kind of mycelial way of pulling multiple strands and braiding it into something new. So, the information in this book is really rests on the shoulders of those great ancient thinkers. Yeah, there's nothing new in here. But the way it's been synthesized and harmonized and braided into something that could only come through this channel, really. Yes.
Yes.
Other people, this isn't a unique book. There's plenty of books out there, and they've got their own little je ne sais quoi. But this one has the one that this thing has channeled and it, has birthed. So nothing new in it, and yet, maybe there's something there that opens up a bit more clarity that helps one see better in the dark.
That's so beautiful. That's really beautiful. And I think you do an excellent job at explaining very complex sort of thought processes into easily digestible ways. It's because these are some, some heavy sort of things that you're talking about, but it's so poetic. I think I would be remiss if I didn't share with the listeners some of my favorite quotes. So let me just get a couple of these up. Uh, I love this. In loving what we reject in ourselves, we heal and enter flow state of the here and now with self as our guide. This is embodied enlightenment. It's just very succinct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. If
Yeah.
we love what we reject in ourselves. Let me see what else. Let's see. I do like how in chapter 3, you mention, as you continue reading, it's wise to keep one eye on the text and one eye on your internal world. Check in with yourself frequently to determine if the wisdom being shared resonates with you. Only you can discern whether something is useful or not, regardless of its truth or scientific validity. It's a good idea to do this with all things in life. Check to see, oh, this is my own little note to this. Yeah, check to see how things are resonating within. And useful things can come from all sorts of places we weren't expecting. But I really like this. Check in with yourself as you're reading this. How is this landing? And what sort of parts are, and you have some really wonderful exercises that that help the reader to do just that.
Yeah, one of the reasons I mention that is that the root of shame is someone knows better than
Yeah.
I am. Yes, that is the root of shame. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. And so I will hand myself over to you, guru, teacher, lover, on a silver platter. You fix me. Yes. And that is the root of shame. And what I wanted to convey in this book is that we've been talking about this subtle, quiet, whispering voice. It's there. You know it. Perhaps I can help you shine a light on it, but you're the one you've been looking for. Yes?
Yes. Yes.
You are the one. And so this is really, when I say things like that, what I'm trying to say is let's heal this shame, because really, let's unshame and unprogram this thing that someone may have something for you that is missing, and it's actually no. Beneath the layers, you are whole. In fact, the root, the etymological root for the words heal, holy, health, and whole is the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So we're all holy, we're all whole, we're all healed, and it's just, and there's health. And so when we can get to that point of, this is a really lovely read, but I feel the wealth within me, that's really worth holding on to then.
Yes, absolutely. So it's not just you're not just learning when you're reading, you are obtaining tools for your own inner learning, to access that inner wisdom. So yeah, just
And
beautiful.
this is what I love about the IFS model versus some of the other psychotherapeutic models, is that in classic kind of psychodynamic or psychoanalytic therapy, you rely on the therapist. So the therapist is there to guide you, to kind of instill that attachment figure for you. Yeah. In IFS, that attachment figure is yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we make a U-turn. Yes. Maybe the IFS therapist can, at best, they can co-guide, they can co-facilitate this journey, but you are the one. Yes.
Yes.
You have it in you. And the best therapists will always navigate back to the client's inner world. Yeah.
Yes.
What is this showing you? How do you feel about this? Can you listen to this part of yourself? So this is what I really value about IFS. It helps to unshame. It goes back to the notion that you are the one. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, I've kept you very long. I hope you're able to spend a few more minutes longer with us, because now is the time where we get down to business and cultivate the witness. Cultivating the witness, this aspect at the end of every podcast, we either do a group hypnosis or a yoga nidra or a guided meditation. And I always open it up to the guest to see if they would like to run the segment. And so it would be such an honor to have you lead a guided meditation for us. And I leave it strictly in your hands.
I feel honored. Thank you. Yes, so let's see if we can just sit. Whatever posture your body needs, and that could be lying down, you could be sitting, you could be moving. Listen to what your body needs, and know that you can always readjust. And also For those of you who don't normally meditate, see if you can view this as just a moment of presence, a moment of really attuning to what is here to be seen. So with that, see if you can begin to go within. We've been talking about this U-turn. Turn around and look at the preciousness within. And if you're finding this a little difficult, some tools are the breath. So notice maybe how the breath is, if you can follow it, maybe to a count of 4, pausing for a count of 4 and then out for a count of 4. Some other people may prefer a visual image, maybe something they notice within. So if you quite like working with your inner imagination, see if you can notice within a spark, a hint of light. Scan your body now in your mind's eye, and oh, there it is. Tiny little spark of light. Now, the more you focus on it, the inner laws of physics are such that they grow and expand. So as you focus on this spark of light within, allow it to grow and fill your entire body, entire being. And now allow it to even extend beyond your physical body. From this space here, this openness, this non-resistance, this acceptance, can you welcome the guests? Can you welcome the parts of yourself? Not as a way of fixing, needing to change them, but as a way of simply giving them a rest. They've walked on their knees for 1,000 miles. Tears, heavy hearts, grief. Give them a home now. Let them come home. In your guest house. Notice how it feels. See if you can bookmark whatever's present here. If you're noticing this spaciousness and openness, this sense of welcoming whatever's here, can you bookmark this feeling so that you can come back to it in moments when we do feel more contracted, less welcoming? So you have all the knowing in you. Every possible piece of wisdom that's ever been written is in you. That which you seek is already in you, as you, closer than your breath. This is how intimate the self is, your true self, closer than your breath. Wow. So come home. Come home 1,000 times. Come home. Come to presence. Even if you're lost multiple times a day, continue to come back home to presence. Self has got you fully, completely, unconditionally, unwaveringly. And if you have parts here that are still hiding, that are still fearful, uncertain, they heard this message. They too are bathed in this glorious light and presence of self, even if they don't recognize it yet. But the seed has been planted now. The way is being cleared for your homecoming. All the parts coming back to self, to love, to presence. And this is the truth. This is who you are. So, see if you can seal this in. Let every cell of your body resonate. We're all coming home. We're all walking each other home. All of you who listen right now, we're all walking home. The presence. So seal that in with an embodied kiss to your lungs, the breath that you breathe in. Every time you breathe, the air makes love to your lungs. Every time you breathe is another opportunity to express the self. So seal it in with a conscious breath. And maybe allow yourself to sigh on the out breath if that feels right. And maybe let your parts know that you're going to transition outwards now. Meeting the world, meeting the other, meeting whatever you've got planned for the day or wherever you are on your journey. Aho. Beautiful. Oh, yes. Tearful eyes, yes.
That was so special. That was so beautiful. Thank you so much. Walking each other home is one of my most special phrases. So thank you for that. That was so beautiful. Thank you for gracing us with your presence and your wisdom and your insight, and just being so open to everything. So inspiring and comforting, and I do hope we're able that this will be the first of many conversations we have, hopefully. The book is Awakening to Love, and the Facebook group is IFS Non-Dual Community. Please feel free to let us know. Are there any other, I'll be posting links and everything in the description, but is there anything coming up that you would like to let people know about?
Not really, no. All I'd like is to print a photograph of yourself and place it at the altar. That's who I'd like you to worship. You.
I love this because I just heard a quote recently that Ram Dass was asked why he had a picture of himself at his altar, and he said, well, you know, if I'm not sending love to myself, it's a reminder to remember that all this love that I'm sending, I need to send it to myself as well. We have to. Yeah, so I love that. I will be doing that. I will absolutely be doing that. Thank you. And I hope everybody that listens does this as well. Thank you so much. What a beautiful honor. And thank you again.
Yeah, and I also want to thank you and wanting to wish the best on your journey. You know, it's such a beautiful service when you come to this work. It's service, yes?
Yes, yes. Absolutely.
So thank you so much for all that you do.
You are, thank you. Really beautiful, really beautiful. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
If I could sing or play an instrument for you, I would sing and play an instrument for you. If I could dance for you, I would dance for you. If I could paint for you, I would paint for you. But my thing is words. But the problem about words is that you may listen to them.
And that would be a mistake.